As you read in the program, this talk is about no estimates. This slide, as the first thing, is not what we're talking about when we fail in estimation, because that's basic communication failure. That's not what I'm going to solve for you. So that's a personal problem or a company problem or a customer problem. Okay, let's talk about what is no estimates. Let's talk about me. I'm a principal at aexea. We do a lot of content. We write content, we do automatic content, and you will see in the keynote how we automate content. A lot of stuff to do with project management, with these Gantt charts or sticky notes. And I'm a member of OpenPM, an open project management platform, and I'm organizing the yearly project management barcamp in Stuttgart. If you know me personally, you can follow me on Twitter. You might get images like these. You can block them if you block the hashtag foodcoma, if you don't like food in your Twitter timeline. No estimates has this hashtag thing in front of it. That's mainly because the no estimates discussion mainly happens on Twitter with these hashtags. There's no forum or manifesto or something. It's just people talking about how to do without estimates. So if you want to learn more about it, search for this on Google it, and you'll find lots of stuff, lots of blog posts, slides like this one. So that's the way to go if you learn about it. So there's actually a no estimates doctrine or something like that. There's no book you can read and which solves it. It's more about the discussion, because as we see later, it's more what you want to do, what you want to achieve, and that's a problem which has to be achieved in your domain or your company. No, there's no general solution how to do with no estimates. Yeah, and I get bonus points for showing slides like these. The funny Dilbert thing, I have a lot of more of this, and that's basically what it's about. We come back to it later. But why do we estimate? I know I get these questions like this. Oh, this thing is not working. I get questions like this. When will it be finished? When do you have feature X ready? What does it cost? When do we start testing? And stuff like that. So basically, this shows us the need to answer two questions. On an abstract thing, we need to know about cost to make a decision. So your customer or your team leader or so wants to know, okay, this is 20 days, so it's 20,000 euros. That's expensive or that's good, we start with it. Now that's the cost part. And we need to know some numbers, how arbitrarily they are, we don't know at that point, to make some plan. Put things in these like little project management charts and stuff like that. So cost and plan is what we want to know, and that we think all that we solve that by asking how long will it take to develop that awesome iPhone app, and you tell me some number. What we forget to talk about are things like this: customer value, how can we do it? Because we talk about what it costs and what are the steps, but not how the process, how the software is made. And we don't talk about it, and that's one of the actually very, very bad things to happen. We don't talk about how can we do better. Especially if in the end the costs were okay and the plan was okay, and that's fine. So that's a successful project. That's what we call a successful project. If we had some plan we made up before. We don't ask ourselves, could it have been done in 50% of the time or 10% of the cost? Or if we would have spent the cost on something else, would that have achieved more value? Working with customers, I have a lot of that experience had. We finished a project and I always thought, 50% of the time spent, we could have developed really cool features. But the customer wanted something else. Huh? Who knows that? Hands up? Right. So wouldn't it be better if we had a plan to develop the right things with the money that the customer spent instead of following some arbitrary plan? Okay, so that's why we estimate and what we do with our estimations. Now we have a little bit of time to spend on this, the part 2, why estimates cause problems. Well, there's this very, very trivial thing you all know, the time versus effort thing. Time, like 8 hours, they vary. If I ask you, this task will take how long? Would you say, okay, 4 hours? 4 weeks later, you take 6 hours because I came into your office every 20 minutes and asked, will it be finished now? Or you have a hangover and it takes longer, or you have a very, very good day. So that's the time thing. That's not good. That's not a good way to measure because it varies. It depends on your individual productivity on that day somewhere in the future, which you can't predict because I read today on Twitter on the NoEstimate hashtag, the future belongs to God. So you're actually putting some number in there depending on factors which you don't know. And there's a second thing which happens a lot, that's this requirements gets stale thing. If you take the requirements, but after some days, weeks, even months, they like some fruit. They're not that fresh. You don't know any assumption you have to put in there, and actually it should be a little bit different. So all the time you put in there, getting requirements, then the estimations gets lost. And then there's a very, very big second thing. Who of you knows about Parkinson's law? In German, it's also called Studentensyndrom. It reads, work expands so as to fill the time available for its completion. So if I have a task and I have 4 weeks, it will take 4 weeks. And I have 3 months, it will take 3 months. Then I only have 1 hour, I'll finish that in 1 hour. If I tell you, Peter, we need a new keynote talk for today, can you do it? And you say, okay, and you will take all your time available to finish the slides. And if I say, okay, we have a talk in 3 months, it will take you 3 months to finish that slide. You won't sit down 1 hour, finish the slides, and don't look at them for the next 3 months. So the estimate itself and the number we put on a task gets into a psychological thing so that we allow ourselves that amount of time to complete that task. A task will never be finished very large, lower than your estimate. Maybe a little bit, but actually probably not. That's why most of the projects are actually solved in the 110 to 120% range of costs. Because you take your time and then you finish it. Then, as itself, the estimate, the number you put on a part of feature or your software has no intrinsic value. Just because asking how long it would take doesn't get you there faster. There's no exchange, no requirements thing in there. It's just, or you didn't write any code getting there to the number. Maybe we just put the time we put in the estimation process, just put it in the task itself. And working in agencies, you see this a lot. You have these big estimation sheets in Excel. Who has one? 25 formulas, statistics, points, numbers, hours, and in the end, you always like, whoa, okay, well, let's try it. And then you get to sales, and the sales changes the number because they want to sell, or the customer is bigger, or there's some other effort. And if a project fails, or you look at your project, you put that experience in the new estimation sheet. Who has an even bigger sheet he used? That's me. Always, each customer, it growed. And well, in the lean community, you say any human activity that absorbs resources but creates no value is called waste, or in the Japanese word, muda. And even the Agile Manifesto says we have to maximize the amount of work we not do. And estimation doesn't give us any value, so we should not do that. Of course, you should not do it like this. This is just funny, but probably Dilbert will take like 12 days to finish it. And there's another big thing that's very important if you look at team structures, at agencies, gaming. That's not always, I have another Dilbert coming up, it's not always meant as a bad thing, but people game if they talk about numbers, if they talk about people. Something like this probably already happened to you. And actually, the guy on the left, he's actually right. If his productivity is measured against numbers he has to make up himself, why should he be so hard on himself? So, but actually on a bigger thing, it's just estimates you give are turned into targets, and then meeting that target becomes the goal. What you wanted to achieve fades in priority to getting to that goal, to that plan. Following that plan gets more important than actually doing it good. And the next thing is, if I ask you about how long you will take, and you say, okay, 2 hours, and I come back after 2 hours and you are not finished, I will feel bad. And I will tell it to you and say, hey, you said 2 hours. And then next time you will say, if he comes back, you will say, okay, it's not 2 hours, it's 3 hours. Then I'll come back to you after 3 hours. That's the next time, and I say, okay, he's already finished like half an hour ago. Next time I will subtract half an hour. The over next time, you will add these half additional hour. We are now at 3 hours and a half for a 2-hour task, just because we have experience with each other. And if this experience with other is full of trust and openness and something like that, that's the buffer is low, is good. But in companies and in contracts where there are high stakes for my personal being as an agency because I have some contract, or for yourself in a team with your team leader, you get blamed for not achieving your estimates. Then, well, what do? You add buffer, and people know about it and learn. And that's not good, because it actually, we think about Parkinson's law again. If you tell me then it's 4 hours, it will take you 4 hours, and you will not even realize it. I myself saw in this chain between, because it's not on a development team level. If you go to sales, they add buffer. To go to internal customer project, they add something on it, and it gets higher and higher. I myself had a project which had a 6.5 task, which went up to a 15,000 euro project in the end. And we finished that, we got that ordered, we finished it, and we actually took like 15 days for that. And everyone was happy. That was very, very sad, because actually it was just, the value itself was just 6.5 hours. It was just some kind of social media thing in TT News. And now you think, oh well, we do Scrum. We have all these story points. We don't have this time and estimation thing. But the first thing people do when they do story point things, they say, okay, story points instead of time. And then after 2 sprints, they put up a velocity chart on the wall. What do you think somebody who sees a velocity chart does? And he has a backlog. Well, he calculates that. And he says, okay, we'll be finished with the backlog in 4 sprints. That's 8 weeks, done. So it doesn't help at all. It's more waste, because you put another level of calculation and formula on it. It doesn't help you. And then there's some minor additional issues. If you know about the Lake Wobegon effect, Lake Wobegon is a fictional city where all children are above average. And if I ask you, how many of you consider themselves a better driver, no, not a better, not one of the better 50% of car driving skills. So who says on himself he's in the lower 50% car driving skills range? So that's about 2%. That's not possible. Statistically, 50% of you should raise their hands. But that's natural. People misestimate their own ability. The studies show good people underestimate their ability. People who have less skills overestimate their ability, but it's just in the end for a team. Where a team says we estimate this and you don't know who does the task some days away, some weeks away, be aware of effects like this. And if you look at the projects in your agency, there's something called survivorship bias. If you concentrate only on things that survived some process, you only look at a small part of the real sample. For example, if you look at a process which failed, and you have your agency with 100 projects, and you look at that 20% projects which failed, you're missing all the other projects you didn't even do. So this makes this all very, very interesting. But let's do some no estimates. There's a study from, I think, 1985. They looked at productivity in a software development team by estimation strategy. They put some arbitrary numbers in the paper. They had over 150 projects, so that's actually a statistical relevant sample. And if you have a programmer alone estimating, you get an average productivity of 8 points. Supervisor alone, a little bit less. If they do it together, they're worse than the programmer would have done it alone. The system analyst is better. But no estimate. Basically, the boss says, wake me up when you are done. With 12 points, they're 50% better than the programmer alone. Or supervisor, even the supervisor alone has doubled their productivity. So there is studies being done about this. People are already doing that. There is a big data sample by Vasco Duarte who is using Scrum. And he looked at all his projects. He's one of the Scrum coach, so he actually does it in a good way. He's happy with the processes, and you can get the data points on this URL. And he said, if he looks at his projects, the story count gave a more stable prediction than using the story points. They all put an estimation in the Scrum process, because you all do all this planning poker thing and you have all these numbers on the card. Well, actually, if he just counts the stories, he's better. And there's a second very, very interesting thing about story count, or card count, or something like this. When people looked at extreme programming some years ago, they looked at the size of the individual cards and stories, and they found that a team who writes tasks down together, the tasks all have a very, very similar size. That's a psychological effect, because if we talk about a software project and we have like 4 features, we don't do 4 feature story cards, and then 1 for documentation, 1 for deployment, 1 for all the small things. It's just not, it doesn't feel natural. If we think all this organizational overhead is worth 1 story, we put it on there. So that's actually very, very interesting. We come back to that later, and because with using that and Kanban, you get very, very interesting results. But in the end, when you do no estimates, what do we do? I told you all the things you don't want to do and what are problems. And one of the things you want to do is you focus on value. That means don't look at what it costs or what it might cost, because all these effects, Parkinson influencing what it will cost in the end and stuff like that. But in the end, look at what's the value for the customer. If you look at the Agile Manifesto, but this is from the principles of the Agile Manifesto, collaboration over contract nature deviation. An estimate between two people or a group, that's a contract. Because we as humans, if somebody promises something to us, that's a contract. But that's not what we want to do. The Agile Manifesto says responding to change over that arbitrary plan we did. So we have to put change into there. We have to look at the value of each feature every time, and then we have to look at it and say, okay, is this thing worth getting 2 days more of attention, or should we do something else? And we have another small Dilbert comic that says basically we should put that time, because that's what they do, we should put that time talking about the estimate more into what we want to do, what we want to achieve, what's the value of the feature, not of the arbitrary numbers. Because the important thing is, even they, characters, they get it. It's what does the project want to achieve? What do we want to do? And then, of course, you have these requirements are not stable thing. You want to do exploration of features. I mean, we are living in the web industry, e-commerce, websites. That's a very, very fast thing. So that's where we went and said, okay, all this waterfall thing, that's not working for us. We need to be agile. And agile itself, it's all about humans and people, and so that's all nice. But it's also about a big and second thing, responding to change. Looking each day at your software and deciding what's the feature which is worth putting some more effort on it every day. That's what we want to achieve. That's what Agile is about. That's what Agile want to do. That's, if you put it on a plan and lots of estimates in there and stuff like that, you don't achieve that. So what we want to do, we go back to this abstraction thing, use the value as the primary decision criteria instead of the cost. And look at yourself, look at your team, look at your project, get better at executing, delivering, and compare yourself to the real world, to what happens out there, and not following some plan. If you do a 1-year project and you did everything which was in the plan, which I did, and after that this project is live and everything works, but it doesn't get the drive in the market as you wanted, well, the project is not a success. Because we met the plan, we met the cost, we met everything, and it was, as a project management perspective, was it a success. But the product itself didn't go well. So we followed the plan, but where did it get us? So no arbitrary plan, no cost-driven decision, and don't forget, don't ignore your potential. Because just because you're following, if you're achieving what you wanted to do, you could have done better. Think about that. What can you do better? Now for you, what to do? It's actually very, very simple. It's not rocket science. I don't have a video about rocket science. Don't be afraid. Just look at all the work that has to be done. Select the most important part. Break it down into small chunks. Deliver it. And start at the beginning. And people do that. That's not... that sounds, oh, we don't have a plan, we don't have, but you look at it, you can observe and respond to that after that, but that's how your workload should be done. Not, oh, can you stop working on that feature because the plan said we have to work on this feature so we can show something to the customer? No, select what has the highest value for you now, at the moment, do that, do it fast, do it good, deliver it, and then select the second most. People are actually doing that. I'm not talking about that, but if you want to look at it, it's called mob programming, where the whole team works on one feature at one time on one computer. Together. And they all work on one thing, and they deploy, and then they took the next feature. And think about all the overhead you can save. You don't even need a ticket system or a bug tracker or something like that, because you have all the people in the room. But that's mob programming, that's not about today. What you want to do is observe and predict. Think about what do you have as indicators in your project, in your company, and avoid putting some guesses in there. That's what a lot of people call guesstimate. so from guess and estimate to them, do not put any prediction for the future in there. Just put observe and predict. Look at, we get 20 bucks done per day. I can tell you, probability that after 1 week you will have done 100 bucks is very, very high. Maybe only 98. But that's actually, that's a prediction. That's not a glass thing where crystal thing you look into and say, oh, maybe we can 80, 120, I don't know. What you need for that to work is you have to have a stable development process. So your development flow has to be stable, your system has to be stable. You can't switch teams around and people around because otherwise all your predictions are going haywire. It doesn't work. But that's actually what you want to achieve at all, but that's not something which does not have value in itself. Everyone wants a stable development cycle or something like that. And then you can concentrate on improving that instead of following some plan. And also use self-regulating predictions. For example, if you look, as I said before, on the number of stories instead of the guess, and then your team starts to, okay, then we just do more stories. We write down every single thing. But after 2 or 3 cycles, well, you get more of these small things done. So, and then if they start as a team, because they change a little bit, or let's just write some meta-level cards or something, it changes again. So it's self-regulating in its prediction. Who of you went to the Kanban talk? I missed it because I had some interview doing, but that was actually interesting, but I have some Kanban in there. If you have a process like this, for those of you who don't know Kanban, you put out all your stuff to do on the left side on some stickies or a ticket system, then select them for work until they are done. They go from left to right, that's it. Okay. Maybe Kanban people can talk about more about this, but you have 2 indicators in there. I can of course do a plan for my project and put it in stickies, but I can also measure. I can do lead time, I can do cycle time. How long does it take for a ticket to go from when we started it, when will it arrive at the right side? What's my work in progress in there? Okay, we're working at 8 tickets at the moment. Tickets take n weeks from left to right, and we have in front of the customer queue a new has, here I think 7, 8 tickets. So you can put a number in there. You can tell a customer, okay, I don't give you a plan about your project, but I can tell you, if you order now, we'll put you up here. And then you go over there, and then you go over the right. And I can tell you the time for here, and I can tell you the time going for there. That's even better than a project management plan, a classical one. That's perfect, if your system is stable. Or, as we had before, if you do Scrum, try doing stories of size 1. Look at you. Who of you does Scrum, has a good working Scrum process? Try it out. Look at the data you have from the past sprints, and look at that. But if you do Scrum, you probably do planning poker too, right? With these cards. That's not estimates, that's estimating. That's actually a not wasteful process, because people learn what are the expectations in the system. You talk in the team, higher card, lower card, but probably you find something not like story points for the card, which is time or duration related. Maybe you use some other measurement, like a smaller number is something I would like to do, and a higher number is something which I would like to do not so good, or something like that. Get rid of the time velocity thing, but try it out on your data. And also upload it to Duarte's project database. He's very happy about some projects in there. If you actually are already in some chaotic process or still in the chaotic range, because you are some startup and it's working, or you're Spotify and it's actually good, then you probably are already there that you actually don't need a big estimation strategy. For example, I don't think that Apple uses estimates to plan the iPhone release cycle. I think they say, okay, every year we'll release an iPhone. and if it's finished, we'll do an event and present it. There's probably not a plan in between. That would not result in 1 year cycles. That's a management objective to have it in 1 year. And then you have, as an agency, the big thing, price. What is the price for the customer? Because I don't have an estimate. Well, the price for the customer is whatever the customer wants to pay for it, because he has a value. And you don't need an estimate to get a price. You might think, because that's how you worked at the moment, the customer calls you and he says, okay, how long will it take? And you say, 2 days. And I say, okay, 2 days. Okay, let's do it. Start, please. I'll send you an email or a fax or something. But actually, the customer has to have a value for each feature he wants. And there are people very, very skilled in finding out value in a customer. And those people are not skilled at all in estimating and talking to people who estimate. It's called sales. They should do this, and you should concentrate on what you do good. And that's developing software, or not finding some price. Yeah, and of course, be agile. Do not be trapped in some plan you did, but focus on change, what you can do, what achieves the highest value. Always do the highest value first. I asked that question some minutes ago, how many features in your projects do not deliver value at all? Think about the projects you have running at the moment. Where would you actually, or where did you actually tell the client that this feature, oh, well, you won't use it? I have a lot of those, but does not everything. And the most important thing is, for this to work, you have to have trust between you, the customer, your team, development, project management, product owner, everything, every stakeholder, and I don't talk stockholder, but stakeholder, you have to have trust. And if you want to go no estimates, you have to gain that trust. You have to deliver. You just can't say, oh, we don't know when we'll be finished, and 20 days later you say, oh, we still don't know because we don't do estimating anymore. That doesn't work. That's not a reasonable process. But you can establish trust. Think about it. Lots of you, at least in my experience, is you have some very, very old customer with long-going contracts dating back 10 years ago. And with that customer, it really works. He just calls and you send him a bill. Now, who has that? Yeah, that's trust. And that's the ideal construct for using no estimates, because actually probably you don't do even estimates anymore. He just calls, please change that thing on the website. And we say, if you say, oh, this is a big thing, then you start breaking it down into smaller things. That's fine, that's good. So break it down, do iterations, don't estimate. Make small iterations which you can observe and predict, instead of doing big estimates, which will get gamed, which will get fallen down to Parkinson's law and stuff like that. So just, please don't misunderstand me, what not to do. Please do not refuse to answer estimation requests. But some years ago, people invented all this agile thing. If you would go 20 years back in time and come with a Scrum-like process, and Telecom said, yeah, that's how we do software now, they wouldn't have bought it. They would say, no, we want all this specification thing going, and please get back in line, and we want a big document and stuff like that. We learned, and the customer learned. So as in estimation, no estimates, we have to educate our customer, internal or external, doesn't matter. Don't do large projects. Don't do unbreakable chunks. Not a large monolithic project, but think more like this. You pick a part, you paint it, maybe some refactoring in between, iterations of the individual part, and then you get the masterpiece. That's how artists do it. That's how we should do our software too. So as a wrap-up, we learned guessing and estimates are bad. Value and cost are not. related. That's something, but if I don't know what it costs, I don't know if it's good for me. If you want to base that on cost, you're focusing totally on the wrong thing. If I tell you, okay, with this small changes, we can improve your e-commerce conversion rate by 20%, you don't ask me about cost. If there is trust between us and I deliver regularly, if I say, okay, well, I need $5 billion and I'll give you these big healthcare websites after 1 year, that will probably not work, as we've all learned. Yeah, focus on value and also focus on your process. Focus on getting better, delivering better stuff and gain trust. Then you can stop estimating, and maybe if you look at your individual project, you can yourself get beyond estimates. So thank you, and maybe that's a good start for a discussion. And maybe we see each other next year with things like beyond estimates, or it's also already talking about no projects. Thank you.